I don't know about you, but I don't want to have a wasted life. I want my life to have a lot of meaning, so I like reading good books. I'm sure like you guys too. Some good stories are being shared. Anybody here a big, summer novel? You just like the beach reads and all of that stuff? Yeah, a few people. My wife definitely fits in that. Anybody like the murder mystery things? Yeah, that's like right up my alley. The more conspiratorial, the better. I like the crazy stuff. But I like as a goal in life, I don't want my life to be wasted because, of course, whether you waste like an afternoon, you look back, you're like, man, I kind of regret that. Or what did I do this last weekend? I didn't do anything productive. Or I just kind of like watch TV. I don't know about you. That feels like a waste to me. I want to be able to like put a couple of notches in the belt. I want to see, what I was able to achieve with something. And I'm going to guess that you're the same way. And reading a book is a good thing, especially if it's, giving you a sense of, story or location or whatever it may be. But if you've ever felt that, like, hey, I want to make sure that there's purpose, there's meaning behind the things that I'm up to, then I have great news for you. Because today, we're talking about one of the stories that Jesus tells that might be one of those more sneaky ways of finding meaning and purpose and mission in life. So I just want to kind of set up for you before we get into some of the crux of it. There's a guy this is a parable, by the way. And in the parable, there is a master, and then there are three servants that Jesus tells us about. And the master is very wealthy, has lots and lots of money, and he's going out, he's traveling far, and while he's out, he wants his money to work for him. You know what that means. He's like, hey, I want people to be able to manage this money well, so I'm going to give this first guy, I'm going to give him 5 bags of gold, next guy 3 bags of gold, next guy 1 bag of gold. And in modern telling, it's not just like a little bag of gold. We're talking the equivalent of like $3 million, 1.5 mil, and 600K is the order. So you hear that, you're like, oh, so he's not throwing around chump change right now. When he gives these servants this stuff to work with, he's given them a substantial amount of money, and with that substantial amount of money comes expectations and assumptions that, hey, as my servant who I'm hiring you to do this thing, I have an expectation that you're going to take what I give you and you're going to do something with it. Which is reasonable, right? Like I think anytime you receive something, you understand, okay, this is not just something that is for me. I have to steward this. And if you can't tell by the screen behind me, when you are given something, the expectation, and especially in this parable, is that you take what you have been given and then you figure out how you can give it away. You might think, hold on, how does that exactly work? Every single thing that I'm given, I'm supposed to give away? Yes. And that's what Jesus gets at in this parable. And that's where I want us to kind of hang out with a little bit, because what you're going to see is that there's a difference between being the master and being the manager. And in this parable that Jesus tells, there's always a God figure and there's a humanity figure. And what Jesus is doing here is he's giving us an understanding that each of us have a job. That each of us have been given different things in life. You have a set of experiences, you have responsibilities. Beyond that, you have things that you're good at. Maybe you have a really good sense of humor and you can leverage that. You've been given that. Now it's your job to give it away. Maybe you have a work ethic that is on par with no one else. Maybe you have a knack for fixing things. You're just good at it. You understand how stuff works. Whatever it is you have been given, God gives gifts so that you can give it away. So in this parable, Jesus tells us that the master has 3 servants. One, he gets a lot of money. The other gets a pretty good chunk. And the one that gets the least amount still gets 600K, nothing to bet your eyes at. And the third guy takes what he was given, and here's what he does. The man who'd received 1 bag of gold, again, still a lot of money, One who received 1 bag of gold came. Master, he said, I know you are a hard man, harvesting where you have not sown and gathering where you've not scattered seed. Now hold up. I know that you're a hard man, which is kind of a ridiculous thing to say. Like if you sit down and you're hiring somebody, you have somebody sitting across the table, you say, hey, here's the role we're hiring, here's the job description, here's what we need out of this position. Can you do this? And that person says, oh yeah, in fact, I would love to join the team and do that with you. Let's go. When you hire that person, it is reasonable to expect that that person would do the thing you hired them to do, right? That doesn't make you hard. That just means you have expectations of how this is going to work because that's the nature of what it is that you're doing. So immediately you see this servant gets defensive. I knew that you were a hard man. Oh, come on. What do you mean hard man? Now again, every single parable Jesus tells, there's a God figure and then there's an us figure in it. There's God and humanity. In some parables, it can actually be kind of hard when you're reading it. You're like, I don't know which one's God and which one's supposed to be us. This one is not difficult, okay? God is the master. We are the servants in this story. And this is one of those that not only is just easy to figure out, the more you spend time in it, the more you consider it, you'll see what Jesus is actually trying to tell us. What he's trying to tell us is that your theology matters. Your theology matters because if you've ever had a thought about God, I don't care how long or however short, I don't care how much education or how little education, if you've ever had a thought about God, that makes you a theologian. So as a room of people who at least for today has had a thought about God at least at one point in time, so for a room of theologians, we get to sit and we get to consider what's going on here. And Jesus says, okay, so for you theology folk out here, you people that are trying to figure out who God is and what God is like, that might be the most important thing you can do with your life. The most important thing that you can think about. Because what you think about when you think about God might be the most consequential thing about your life. And immediately we see this guy with the 1 bag of gold has this thought about who God is in the story. It says, I know you're a hard man. I know that you are, angry and extractive and trying to always get stuff from us, which again is a perspective. Is it a good perspective? Is it a healthy perspective? No, we can argue about that as theologians, right? But the question that kind of is being begged here is that what God is actually like? But the consequence is there. Because this guy, this servant in the parable, believes that that's what the master is like. And what does he do? Because he thinks the master is this harsh and extractive person, he takes what he has been given and he cares more about not losing what he has been given. Because he fears what happens if he actually does something more than he fears what happens if he doesn't do anything with what he has been given. It's kind of like in sports. I love sports. NBA Finals right now, I'm all in, right? Like it's a ton of fun. I just like watching different teams. And if you are an Arizona sports fan, then you know very well what I'm about to describe to you. There are times where the team that you like will get a big lead going into the final bit of the game. And they will have maybe like a 2 or 3 touchdown lead. I don't know. And you're like, wow, I can shut this off and go put that IKEA shelf today, which happened to me last season watching the Cardinals. They're up, game's over. Guess what happened? You know what happened because you're an Arizona sports fan, and this happens to us a lot. When a team gets that big lead, what happens quite often is they put themselves in cruise control mode. They call it protecting the lead, which isn't a thing, by the way, because you don't protect the lead. You either build the lead maintain the lead or lose the lead in sports. And what happens again, if you're an Arizona sports fan, is you see them get this lead, you're like, wow, we're actually decent. And then it goes smaller and smaller and smaller. And then it becomes a coin flip at the end of the game about who is going to win. And half the time your team ends up losing, even though you had a big lead going into the end. It's terrible. It's terrible. I hate it. It's just part of life, though. What happens with this manager? He gets this bag of gold. He gets this thing that his master has trusted him with, and he cares more about not losing than he cares about winning. And I would imagine that he knows how to win. He got hired for the job in the first place. He just fears because, well, I knew you're a hard man. And that fear of loss, that fear of losing, always produces the same thing, which is more losing. So the man who got one bag of gold does something dumb with what he's been given. He says, I know you're a hard man, so I was afraid. That's the theological issue. So I was afraid and went out, hid your gold in the ground. See, here is where it belongs to you. He returns what he was given, 100% of what he was given, he gets to give it back. He kept it safe. And in his mind, he did a good job. But of course, this parable is told for a reason. This is not about keeping it safe. This is not about not losing. This is about taking what you have been given and using what you have been given to do the work of the master. So this guy, you can see him as the villain, because in this parable, he more or less is the villain. But is he a bad guy? I don't know. I have a hard time calling him a bad guy when I think about, well, does he make a dumb decision here? Yeah, for sure. But I don't know. So much of this is personality, right? Like how are you wired? Some of you are wired to hear this and you're like, yeah, I err on the side of being protective of what I've been given. And that's fine. That's personality stuff. Some of you are on the other side where you're like, man, if you give me one bag of gold, I can turn it into 5, and I'll take that 5 and I'll turn it into 15 and 25, and then I'm going to be living off the interest while I take it and do more and more and more. Because that's how you're wired. And that's great. This isn't about saying, here are some people who are good, some personalities that are good, and some personalities that are bad. This is not about personality. This is about taking what you've been given and using it. Because what happens when we get into kind of the next step of this story is the master goes to the first servant who had 5 bags of gold, turns it into 5 more bags for 10 bags total. And he says, well done, my good and faithful servant. Goes to the one that he gave 3 bags of gold and returns 3 more, making 6 total. And he says, well done, my good and faithful servant. Doesn't say, you brought back 10 and you brought back 6. I like one more than the other. Nope. The same response regardless. So you have the one that has the least amount, who might think, well, I've been given so much less, so like, how big of a deal is it if I just kind of sit on this one for a while? How much, I'm not gonna cause any hurt, I'm not gonna cause any pain by just lying low. But the master looks at him through a different lens. Not because, the dollar amount, no. It's about responsibility. And what he does with what he has, doesn't have to be spectacular. And often I think in church, we think of, well, here's what God has given me, here's how I've been blessed, or here has been the gifts I have. None of it is spectacular. It doesn't have to be. All you have to do is take what you have been given and be faithful with it. So the message Jesus gives us is that playing it safe is not the goal. Rather, it's to take what God's given you and realize that it is not neutral. What you have, who you are, is not neutral. You're using it for something. The question is, are you using it for the right things? And it's always a choice, isn't it? But you have to ask this question, okay, well, then what motivates me? Am I living a life that is fearful? Because a life of fear, like this manager, can lead you to fear losing what you have because of what might happen. It's kind of like, with my kids, if I leave the house for a couple of hours, we got some dishes in the sink, maybe some dishes on the countertop too. I say to them, hey, I'm going to be gone for a couple hours. You guys are going to be good here. While I'm gone, you don't got to do much, but hey, could you 5 or 10 minutes max just wash the dishes, just get those taken care of while I'm gone? And they say, yes, Father, we will do the dishes when you are gone. I say, excellent, child. So I leave, and then I come back. And when I return, I look at the countertop, and lo, there are dishes on the counter and in the sink. And I get home. I say, hey, guys, what's going on? They say, oh, Father, we know you are a hard man. And we know how good you are at washing the dishes yourself. You get them so clean. I fear that my cleaning of the dishes will not be on par as yours. So I started to, but then I just thought, you know what? I should save these for him. This is a theoretical story, by the way. Would never happen in my family, ever. But then they say, but you know what? No dishes were broken while you were gone. Not a single one. In fact, we had a little snack and we even added a couple to it. When you hear that, you don't hear success, right? You hear a lack of responsibility. You hear a lack of understanding. You hear a lot of things. But more than anything, and you take the joking side of it, what you hear is fear. Fear of getting it right. The uncertainty. And I don't know about you, but uncertainty is one of the guarantees you will have in life. There is nothing you will be able to do in life to eliminate uncertainty. Okay, so when you know that one thing you can rely on is that you do not know what happens next or what's around the corner, then it makes it a little bit easier, right? Because it's now not your job to try to control what happens next. Rather, it's your job to take the reality of what you're in and to say, I'm not going to let fear motivate me and make the decisions of what happens next and next and next, like this servant. See, what they're dealing with is ownership confusion. When you have ownership confusion, that means you think that you have what you have because it's for you and you're supposed to protect it. You're supposed to keep it. You're supposed to make sure that you do not use it because who knows, we might need it for later. So you're just better off sitting back and not taking the initiative, or in reality, not taking responsibility for the things that you have. Let me tell you, the most meaningful things that you have in life are not meant to be preserved. The most meaningful things you have in life are not meant to be preserved. Think of it like kids. You have these kids. The goal of having a child is not to say they lived past the age of 1. Success. Okay. Yes, also not the entirety of it, right? Like survival is a low bar. Now again, survival in like caveman days with all the stuff, maybe it's a little different then. But today we would say, yeah, that's a low bar. As a parent, I would say we have the responsibility to help our kids to thrive, to be launched out and go. So when you are given kids, you have that responsibility not to just protect them, that's good, but to deploy them, to send them out into the world, to go and learn the same kinds of lessons that you and I are learning right now. That's our job. It's not to protect these kids, but to manage them in a way that sends them out. And if this is true, not just for parenting, not just for money, let's say, but if this is true for every single aspect of who you are as a human, then this is a big deal. Because then this means you have a mission and you have a purpose in life. And because you have a mission and a purpose in life, you can now sit from your perspective and think about this past week, think about the upcoming week, and you can start to frame things and say, okay, here is what God has in store for me. I can look at my calendar and I can tell you their names of who God has in store for me. This is what God's trusting me with. Okay. How do I steward that well? How do I not just protect some of this stuff? How do I deploy these things so that I can be somebody who lives on mission with a purpose? Because when you have a treasure that you want to bury, or that you just want to protect, you can bury it in the backyard, right? Like, it takes you an afternoon. You dig a hole, you put it in, you cover it up, you're done, you don't have to think about it. It's really easy if that's your approach. But when you have an investment in relationships, investment in a job that you're really trying to learn and grow, and a ladder you're trying to climb, let's say, then it's no longer about just bury it and forget. It takes a lot of time, and it feels like a calling and a pursuit, and it starts to consume you to a certain way because it's what you're after, because you care about this thing. It's inconvenient. It's also what you were created to do with whatever it is God has given you. Jesus' parable. 0% of the money belongs to the servant. 0% of the money belongs to the servant. And here is the point, and I do not want you to miss this because this is such a big deal. In fact, this is kind of the deal of the whole parable, okay? You are not the owner. Not just of a bag of gold. You are not the owner of your life. You are just the manager. You're not the owner of your life. You are just the manager of your life. And when you adopt that perspective on who you are and what you're doing, you'll realize that you can save yourself from the category error of thinking that the things that you have and who you are and what you do is just about you. It's easy to think that everything is about you, that my money is my money and my time is my time and my people are my people and I don't have to. Nope. Your life itself is not yours. Paul writes it this way: you are not your own. You can't hoard what was never yours in the first place. You can't sit on the things that God has done in your life and just say, it's all for me. So I have the ability to really get a lot of things done. I'm super efficient. I have a systems mindset, growth mindset, and I can go. Great. And that'll probably serve you well. Also, that's not just yours. That's to be used for something beyond you. You have a hunger, you have a drive, you have wisdom that you've accumulated over the years and you learned it the hard way. Great. That is not just for you. The resources you've been blessed with, the time you have, managers, we do not feel guilty about the life we have. However much, however little, however in between, you don't feel guilty because you know that it's not yours in the first place. Managers don't feel guilty, they feel responsible because they look at what they've been given and they say, okay, what do I do with this? How do I steward my family well? How do I steward these resources well? What do I do with this time on my hands? You pay close attention, and God in Jesus' parable does not ask, how did you keep my investment safe? How'd you keep my money safe? Doesn't ask it. Rather, he says, what did you do with what I gave you? Let's take an accounting. And it's really easy to take an accounting when you're talking about literal numbers and money and all that. A little bit harder when you think about life, but again, that's Jesus' point here. So that time of accounting comes when the master has it out with the servant. His master replied, Jesus continues the story, you wicked and lazy servant. So you knew that the harvest where I have not sown and gather, that I harvest where I have not sown and gather, where I've not scattered seed. It's like, you know how I operate. You know how I do things. You know how this works. Yet you still just buried it? Are you dumb or just stupid? Like, what's going on? Like, he has some harsh words here. Well then, you should have put my money in a high yield savings account or deposit with the bankers so that when I returned, I would have at least received it with interest, which is the problem here. Like, the master knew that the servant knew better than to just bury it and walk away. And now, you and I, we know better than to just bury what God has given us and walk away. I can hear some of the thinking here. You're like, man, Pastor Austin, you don't understand. God hasn't given me much of anything. In fact, nobody has given me anything in life. Everything I have worked my tail off to get to that, and I have achieved what I've achieved because of my own ingenuity. It's because of who I am and what I've been able to accomplish that I've been able to get to this point. Nobody gave me anything. Let me tell you, if that's the reality of your life, when you look back at that, I want to say, I am sorry, because that is really hard. And the temptation is to say something like, well, I'm not hurt by it, I'm just fine. And trust me when I say, the person who says that they aren't hurt by something like that is the most hurting person in the room. What do you do when you realize that you got these scars, right? Like we all have scars somewhere on our bodies or whatever. Some are big, some are small, some hurt a lot. Some you don't even remember are there until you just kind of like shift a little bit. You're like, ooh, oh yeah, there it is. And you're reminded of that pain, that painful procedure, that thing that happened to you or whatever it was that led to you getting that scar. And that's true emotionally as well. You might be fine 90, 95, 99% of the time, but every once in a while, you get angry. You get ticked about that thing, or you start thinking of that person over there, and you're like, no, never again. That's a scar. Maybe you think of it more like a chip on your shoulder. They left me with nothing. I will figure it out on my own. I'm just gonna go and I'm gonna do it and I'm gonna show them, which in your teens, in your 20s, and maybe even in your 30s might be a really good motivational tool to access, to say, you know what, I'm just gonna keep going and I'm gonna go and I'm gonna go. But when you live your life with a chip on your shoulder, the people most close to you pay dearly for that. That enters into your marriage, it enters into your friendships, to your parenting, to your job, because nothing is good enough to heal that wound. When we live like this and become people who are more demanding of others, less patient because we're just angry about one thing or another, and we go around, we start dictating things, we're less considerate, we become curmudgeonly. And you probably have seen people age in that kind of a way, where instead of becoming more gracious toward others in the world, they become less and less and less, to the point to where you don't even feel like you know them anymore. I don't know about you. I don't want that to happen in my life. I'm gonna guess you probably don't want that to happen in your life either. That's not who you want to become. So here's my question. You don't want to become like that. Maybe you have a complicated past. Maybe you don't. Maybe you just sit here in gratitude. Amen, that's great. But here's the question I have for those of us that maybe didn't have stuff handed to us, where we have had to figure it out on our own, and we do have that chip on our shoulder. We do bear those scars and those wounds. What do you wish you had? Is it a friend? You didn't feel like you had anybody supporting you? Nobody cheering you on? A mentor? Nobody taught you how to do this stuff? A father? Somebody put their hand on your shoulder and walk you through it? And here's the follow-up then. what are you doing to give other people the thing you wished you had? Because if it's nothing, if you're doing nothing, then here's what you can expect. You can expect the whole world to keep going the direction it's going, which seems awfully great, right? Nuclear weapons sound just wonderful. I love, the way that all this, we're really good at killing each other. I don't want us to get better at that, but it seems like that's the direction that stuff goes. Okay. How about in your own life, in our own society? Do you see more peace? Do you see more goodness? Do you see more gratitude coming out of the people around you? What are you doing in one other life with a few other people maybe to be somebody that says, you know what, I did not have this offered to me. I'm going to step in and I'm going to try to do my best to offer that to somebody else. That's the only way that any of this stuff changes. It's when we stop burying our treasures, when we stop burying what God has given us, and we start using the life experience that we have, using all the resources of who you are to turn around and say, I am going to give this away. Because burying a treasure, burying yourself and saying, nope, this is just going to be about me, Jesus calls that wicked. Wicked. Over the next several weeks, we're going to be talking in this new series called Give It Away. We're going to be talking about responsibility, which sounds like something that, nobody wants to talk about. And especially in America, we love our freedom. 250 years, that's a pretty good run, right? Like, I love freedom. I love America. I love blowing things up, seeing things blow up in the sky. It's going to be a wonderful summer when it comes to celebrating, right? We love freedom. We don't really like talking about responsibility as much. Christians do, because it's in our scriptures, because it's what Jesus teaches us right here, is to think about what are we responsible for. And we listen to Jesus, and we take moves, and we do what Jesus asks us to do. Not just because, well, he's Jesus, I guess we're supposed to do it. I mean, that's fine. It's not the best motivation, but mostly because we're convinced that he's right. That this is actually the best way of using the things that you have been given. Not to hoard it because it's not yours in the first place, but rather to give and give and give, because we believe that there's a moral framework that undergirds all of this. And this moral framework is not that we have been given all these talents, all of these abilities, all of these things so that I can have a great life. No. You have been given all that you have, so that you can take that and turn it around and invest it in others. Jesus gives us the framework for how we do this. We do this for the good of the world. So, here are some questions. Who taught you? Who prayed for you? Who gave you something, gave something away so you could have it? Think about that. Grandmother, parent, patiently walking with you in the prayer garden. Who gave this to you? The reason you're here today, I guess it's not just willpower, right? There's someone. There's probably a community of people that pass this on to you. Then here's the next question. Who are you doing that for? Who are you doing that for? Christians have to shift their thinking away from this mindset of how do I get more? That is not our biggest concern, is how do I get more? No. Rather, how can I give? Where can I give? To whom am I responsible to give things to? Because we have this conviction that God is a giver, big time giver. That's our theological, that's a root of what we believe, a doctrinal statement, if you will, that God is a giver of all things, which is rather nuts when you think about it, because all the goodness of creation you get to enjoy because God gave it to you. So our church grew by one person yesterday when a child was born. That child is held by his doting parents. And that child is a gift. And if you've ever held a newborn child, really any child, their smile on the face, that is a gift from God. Cream cheese frosting on a carrot cake is a gift from God. Can I get an amen to this? Hey, there it is. Led Zeppelin, Lord of the Rings, and Star Wars. Gifts straight from the Lord, okay? And I'm gonna guess, you can disagree with me, you're wrong if you do, but you can disagree. You can probably put your own things that you really like that resonate with you in there. That's great. There's so much goodness in this world that we look at and we say, that is a gift from God. So then what do we do with those gifts other than force your kids to watch the extended editions of Lord of the Rings every March 25th? What do you do with the gifts that you've been given? The question you have to ask theologically, did God have to do it? Did God have to make everything? Of course God is not compelled to do anything. That's what makes God God, okay? But there's one thing. God is love, and love compels. And out of love, we see love gives. And we see that initially in all creation itself, of course, but then we see it more specifically in Philippians chapter 2. It talks about how Jesus did not consider, God the Son, did not consider like transcendent divinity something that was so good that, God's upstairs in heaven looking down and saying, oh, a bunch of lame creatures, they're so annoying. That's not God. It's not how he works. Rather, he sees us in the muck and mire of life and says, I will go and be with you, because God gives. Even God's very self, God gives. And then Jesus lives this ministry where Jesus gives and heals and does all of this stuff. And if that wasn't radical enough, that God incarnates, that God performs miracles and teaches and shows us how reality is actually bent around here to understand it through his lens, what we get is Jesus giving himself to the point of going to the cross for us. Because God is a giver. And when you find Jesus at the cross, you receive and you say thank you. So this is the body of Jesus, as we say, given for you. Take and eat. This is the life of Jesus. This is the blood of Jesus shed on your behalf. Take and drink. Thank you, Lord. So today, we've received. We've received the gift of God into our own bodies. And if there's one thing that you are meant to do with the life of God that you just received, it is to give it away. I'm excited to be able to do that and talk about this over the next few weeks as we look at what it means to give ourselves away for the good of the world around us. As you go giving yourself away, the Lord bless you and keep you. Lord, make his face shine on you and be gracious to you. The Lord turn his face toward you and give you peace. As we dismiss from here, I just want to give you another quick reminder. Starting point, if you're new, been around, maybe you've been hanging out for a few months even, that's totally fine. Join us at Starting Point right there in the back. We'd love to just hang out, help you get to know the church a little bit more. Love you guys. Have a great week.